All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 2:05.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Meetings from March. March is. My brain just went completely blank.
Minutes.
Yeah, the minutes from March's meeting. We called order at 2:07. The minutes from the February meeting was approved. We discussed doing 2,800 flyers with the postal resident being at 18 cents per mailing. They stated that it must be larger than a standard size postcard. We discussed the practicality of the mailings, contacting veterans organizations, voter records, driver's licenses, county property taxes, and PNW veterans to get a most entirety list that we could of veterans that reside in Michigan City. We discussed the Veterans Commission's PR, the campaign, getting our information out on the TV, radio, and utilizing the Beecher, getting a Facebook page set up. We also discussed that the LaPorte County VSO is looking for an additional part-time person on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 4 p.m. We discussed a Michigan City stand-down, contacting Rhonda Hamilton Graves and Kelly Gardner. The LaPorte Veterans Commission was discussed about contacting them to see what they do and how they operate. And then also reaching out to Michigan City schools. And then we adjourned at 2:41 p.m.
Any additions, subtractions, or changes to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
I have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is approved. Just to follow up our discussion about, well, first of all, you mentioned about the Veteran Service Officer. In fact, I saw Rich Mazinski at the county commissioner's State of the County address and forgot to ask him where that's going. I talked to him a week or so ago, and that is a replacement for George Watkins, and George will stay in place until the new person gets in and gets trained, and I guess they have some candidates, but whether they've hired anybody yet or not, I'm not sure, so that's what that's about. George is finally going to step aside, but they're going to go through a transition somewhat similar to what they did with Joe, so they're working on that now. Whether they have somebody yet or not, I'm not sure. I wish I'd have thought to ask Rich, but I didn't do that. So I did talk to the post office about mailing, and it's not really all that simple. There are stipulations with regard to number of pieces that you can mail and how you go about that. Their strong suggestion is that we work through somebody that does that sort of thing. And the thought came to mind, Westfield Printing, just because I know about them and I know they do that kind of stuff. And I haven't had an opportunity to talk to them down there. But
wouldn't the Beecher have?
The Beecher probably does it as well, and they're here in town.
Yes.
So, yeah, the Beecher. That's a good idea, Steve. And so we have a couple of different options, but
do we know the information we want on flyers?
I don't think so, and I also got the impression that regardless of the direction we go, it's going to be fairly expensive, and so, that's a decision we're going to have to make, is whether it's worth the cost and going to the council and asking for an appropriation, depending upon how effective we think it's going to be. And I've also had some discussions that I think we talked about a little bit at our meeting last month about whether we should start with some of the existing organizations and see what information we can get from the existing veterans organizations, start with the Michigan City organizations and kind of work from there. And I don't know whether we should make a list and divide it up, or how best to approach that, but at least get a general idea. Now, obviously, there's going to be some crossover too, because there'll be veterans that'll join more than one organization. But at least it may give us some ideas and be able to give them some idea of what the number of veterans are in the Michigan City area. So I'm not sure we have a clear picture of that at this point, but
well, even that's only going to be a partial picture.
No question. And that's
the homeless.
And you're right, Keith, and that's part of the frustration that Joe and George were talking about, is not really knowing how many veterans there are in the county. And
I don't think there's any really way to find out, because you go to the veterans organizations and all they know is their membership.
Exactly. And there's a lot of veterans, and I'm one of them, that don't belong to the local organizations. And so that's true. That's certainly not going to give us a clear picture. I'm not sure there's an easy solution to that. That doesn't mean that we can't work at it and see if we can make some progress along the way. But I have a feeling it's going to be a difficult task. And I certainly am not opposed to the flyer approach, but we're talking about probably and I'll get some numbers. We're probably going to talk about a significant amount of money, and the question is, what kind of return are we going to get on it? So,
Right.
I can reach out to the DAV, the VFW, and the American Legion because I'm associated with all of them already and already know the individuals, so I can just basically ask them a rough estimate of what their current membership is. I know at the squat post 451, ours are approximately about 257, I believe, at last count, Legionnaires that we had on our files. But I can reach out to at least those three and probably 37 Miller post as well.
Yeah, DAV's about 460, and now you got members that may be
They're-
460.
correct.
Some may be in Florida, some may be in Michigan.
Right.
And that was the frustration of George and Joe, because it's very, very difficult to get a firm handle on how many veterans there are. But we can take the other approach that we talked about that week last month and talk about how we can try to get the word out about what veteran services are available. And again, social media, the Beecher, the News Dispatch, the radio stations, and so forth. That's relatively simple from our standpoint, but it's a matter of knowing what information we want to pass along too, and what's going to be most beneficial for veterans. So, and as I mentioned last month, a couple of calls I had a few months ago, we're not necessarily talking just about veterans themselves. We're talking about family members. We're talking about widows, and we're talking about kids, and we're talking about families of veterans, both living and deceased. So it affects a lot more than just the veterans themselves.
I think probably the best way for us to go forward to approach this would be to, if we're going to utilize the mailing and do a postcard that's slightly larger than standard that we talked about, is do bullet points that we're going to do education, survivor benefits, and like do it generalities, so that way housing, things of that nature, so that way we can get the most information out there. Like your organization, my organization, we do other things other than what the county VSOs do. We do food banks, we do ramp building assistance. There's a bunch of other things that we can do, so we can, and much, much more, and have them contact it and try to get the information to George and Joe as to what all of our organizations do, as opposed just to what the VA offers as well. Because some of our community members need stuff that isn't offered by the VA.
Mm-hmm.
Or couldn't we do like a newspaper article, stating Michigan City cares for their veterans, and then maybe list the different organizations, that help veterans?
Well, then do you want to have people who their questions aren't answered in there? If you have any other questions, contact the Veterans Commission of Michigan City, and we can help point you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Either the commissions or the VSOs.
No, the VSOs, yeah. Maybe what I'll do is I'll
Good idea. Right.
contact both the News Dispatch and the Beecher, because maybe the approach is a series of newspaper articles or Beecher articles and or interviews on the radio with with representatives of the various veterans organizations in Michigan City, just to talk about what those organizations are doing. And that should be, I would think that would be relatively simple to set up, and focus specifically on the local veterans organizations and what they're doing.
I think that would be an excellent idea.
And if you guys set up a Facebook page, you could do features on that. You could do live videos, which don't cost anything, and promote them on their social media pages as well.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, very good idea.
So I think our next step should be at least getting that Facebook page up and running, so that way we can at least have a starting point to start collecting some ideas.
Well, I will be absolutely no help, because I have no interest in Facebook whatsoever. I've never been on it. I've never looked at it. I understand I was the subject of a rant in the last 24 hours, but I've not seen it and don't know what it says. So
I'll be more than happy to take one for the team. I'll make a Facebook page.
Okay. During the Erisma Corporation dinner a couple of weeks ago at Blue Chip, we gave a couple of grants to Reigns of Life, and a couple of representatives from Reigns of Life came up to me afterwards, and one of them gave me her card. Allie Olson, instructor assistant to the executive director. Reigns of Life is working with the Wounded Warrior Project to set up a veterans program with the horses, similar to what they do with the kids. and I guess it's in the very early stages right now. Maybe some of you have heard of it, but I didn't know about that until they came up to me and told me about it. So she gave me her card, and I said I would mention it at our next meeting. But that is certainly something, and I don't mind doing that, getting information for them about, more specifically about what the program is going to entail and how they're going to put it together, and then help them to get publicity and promotion to try to get the word out to veterans. So I've heard some of the stories. I don't know how many of you have, but I've heard some of the stories about how successful the Reigns of Life program has been with kids. And then maybe it can be equally successful with veterans. There's no way to know until it starts. But apparently they have some sort of a working relationship, a contract or an agreement or something with Wounded Warrior Project to do this. And so I thought I wouldn't pursue it anymore until I talked to everybody about it. But since she gave me her card, I'll contact her and see if we can get some more information and see if we can help them promote it at the very least.
I would like some more information prior to doing that. I know that Wounded Warriors had some issues with their charitable contributions and their reporting and things of that in the past. So before moving forward with that, I would definitely like to hear more information about how they are currently operating and what they are currently doing.
Okay.
And there are,
I'm very hesitant when it comes to that.
absolutely. But throughout the country, there is organizations that do this horse therapeutic rehab for PTSD veterans.
Well, horse, just a bigger dog.
Yeah.
And look how many service dogs have been trained and
Absolutely.
are out there with veterans now.
And
So,
quite frankly, this may be an effort of Wounded Warriors to try to polish their image a little bit.
Well, if you stop and think about it, Wounded Warriors is a national entity.
Exactly.
So you have this national entity that has all this money, all right, and then so much of this money just goes out to veterans that maybe look like a small amount, but as large as they are, it's still a large amount. But
Oh yeah.
the total amount is
My biggest concern is the amount that they were paying their
Yes.
staff and their directors and things of that nature, which was a huge to do. But prior to getting involved with Wounded Warrior, I would triple, quadruple check anything that they're involved with just to be on
and
the
there
safe
are other
side.
groups out there other than Wounded
Correct.
Warrior.
Absolutely, there are.
Well, and the only reason I mention that is because apparently they have or are in the process of working out some sort of arrangement with them, and Reigns of Life is, and everything I've heard about Reigns of Life is very positive. So, in fact, I talked to former Senator Arnold's wife, is very much involved in Reigns of Life, and Lauren, on mine, Lauren Arnold is very much involved in Reigns of Life, and I know what an outstanding job they do. So, well, let me get some more information. I'll bring it back next month, and we can have something else to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, well, the things I'm going to do is, and I'll contact Reigns of Life and get some more information, and I'll contact both the Beecher and Westville Printing and get some general information about what we're talking about in terms of a mass mailing and what kind of expense we're talking about and what kind of preparation and that sort of thing. And you're going to set up the Facebook page?
I will set up the Facebook page and reach out to the VFW 37 to kind of get a ballpark estimate for their numbers. I know that they won't be accurate. We know that some of the people don't live here, but at least it'll give us somewhat of a starting point to see where we're going to go with it.
Cool. Are there any? You said you've got 3 organizations you're involved with. Are there any other organizations that we should approach at this point, or should we start with?
Well, we have the Wall Gang as well, and then the Guardian Riders as well that we can reach out to.
And Operation Serving Heroes.
Operation Serving Heroes, correct. And there's another one, and the name is escaping me at the moment. I'll think of it later. But there's a couple more. I'll reach out to all the organizations in LaPorte County veterans, because there is a Facebook page for that I'm an administrator on already, and I'll reach out to them to see if they have any.
Well, and not only that, we can also speak with some of our community organizations that work with individuals who wouldn't be affiliated with any of these organizations, who are still out there, like the Keys to Hope.
Yeah, we can get we can get the numbers from CCH.
Salvation Army.
That shouldn't be an issue at all.
Yeah, both of those, Keys to Hope and Salvation Army. In fact, Salvation Army had a luncheon today, which I couldn't go to because I went out to PNW.
Why are you talking about luncheons after lunch?
I know, I'm hungry.
I'm saying,
I didn't even get invited, man. All right. I think that's pretty good.
Steve, anything else you have that you want to discuss today?
Well, just some information I'm throwing out there. I won't be at the next meeting due to the fact I'm going to California for the National Veterans Awareness Ride.
Okay.
We leave Michigan City on the 8th to head west. But on the 21st, the National Veterans Awareness Ride's coming through Michigan City again, where they spend the night here in Michigan City, and then on the 22nd, we're leaving from the VFW, heading down to the Lafayette home, and then to Washington, D.C.
Same route?
Oh, yeah, always. But the number of veterans that's in this ride this year, and it's going to be pretty big this year due to the fact that Rolling Thunder in Washington, D.C. is their last year of doing it.
Can you give me some information on that so I can put it out to the Legion Riders and some of the other motorcycle
I sure can.
veteran stuff that I can get all that stuff for them too. So
Yeah, because we have groups that meet us, out west a little farther. It may just be Portage, it may be the Rock in Iowa, somewhere on 80.
Or in Michigan City.
Yeah, in Michigan
To go to
City.
Lafayette.
Go to Lafayette.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And you always set it up with
That's
Todd,
probably
so
what I'm
make sure
gonna
you
do
do that
again.
again. So
Yes.
We
on
did
the
the
trip,
breakfast
so.
last year, I think.
Natalie, anything more?
No, I think we got a good start, and I think we have progress moving forward. So I'm pretty happy about that instead of just chit chatting. So we're making progress. Yay!
Yes.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm good.
Well, we're making this up as we go along. So
Absolutely.
we knew we were going to have to do that. Kansas?
No, other than the fact that the council really appreciated you coming before us the one meeting and giving us an update. All the feedback I've gotten from the council members are very appreciative of all the work you guys have put in so far, and they're really looking forward to help supporting this group and organization moving forward in any way we can.
And just like I did with the Richmond Corporation,
Yeah.
I'll do that on a regular basis also. So
Great.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. President, for doing that.
yeah, I thought, my last official duty was the Richmond Corporation dinner at the end of March, and I'll have some time on my hands. And yes,
So you thought.
So much for that idea.
Yes.
Keeps you young, Ron.
All right, have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say okie dokie.
Okie
We are adjourned.
If you need
Choose one.